Can you hear me? Can I get some thumbs up if you all can hear me fine? Oh, wonderful. Yeah. No feedback. Um, welcome. Welcome, everyone. This evening, what I'd like to do is say a few words about koans because I know for a fact there's people that probably never even heard that word in the audience tonight. And after that, I'd like to bring up Joe Hutto a little bit more and his raising the 24 wild turkeys. And then we're going to get into the Blue Cliff Record 16, Picking and Pecking. So, koan. What is a koan? What do we do with a koan? The koan is not a conundrum to be solved by a clever person, nor is it ever a paradoxical statement except to those who view it from the outside. It is more like taking a pill and letting it dissolve within. The koan does the work. Just give it time to dissolve. The course of koan study brings the student to reality, the big R reality. This reality of the phenomenal world, the world of differences, and the essential world, world of oneness, of no separate self, being one fact. Again, the phenomenal world and the essential world, one fact. This experience of reality is beyond time and space and is found in the humblest acts of daily life. I know we've all felt it before in our daily lives. It's just a fact of being human. Koans always deal with the essential world. As stated above, this essential world is the world of oneness, this world of no separation, of no coming and going, no getting into and no getting out of, no good, no bad. A line from Hakuin Zenji's song of Zazen comes to mind. Going and coming, we never leave home. Just this perfect world, with all of its problems, with all of its beauty, nothing left out. I'm not trying to be nice, I'm simply saying that this essential world includes everything, and that is the practice, not leaving anything out. Okay. So let me get into case 16, Blue Cliff Record. By the way, the Blue Cliff Record is a compilation of 100 koans by Master Secho. And the one, again, we'll be talking about tonight is Picking and Pecking. You might ask me why this koan. Well, I think all of you who have heard my talk last Wednesday about Joe Hutto raising wild turkeys have a sense of why this picking and pecking. And so I'm going to give say a few more words about Joe's picking and pecking so you get a flavor of it. And yes, as I get into the koan, you will feel the connection there. So please bear with me for a few minutes, particularly to the people who have heard about Joe's wild turkeys, but I think probably all of you who have heard would like to hear a little bit more about Joe's turkeys and his experiment, raising 24 wild turkeys. Joe is a naturalist. Joe Hutto is a naturalist and a wildlife painter. Excuse me, I'm struggling a little bit. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Joe's book that I refer to is called Illumination in the Flatwoods. So basically, I was watching TV, natural wildlife program, and I saw this man with these little birds. And yeah, eventually I got to know that they're wild turkeys. And the way they were just walking and looking and observing, it reminded me of the velociraptors in Jurassic Park. Remember those? How they would, when they walked, they looked and they knew everything around them. Just so sharp. Yeah, just so sharp. Anyway, the first part of the book, Joe contemplates on how to raise wild turkeys from egg to adult. The first clutch of eggs came from a person who had a hen killed by a coyote. Don't know where the second clutch came from, but he did wind up with 24 eggs. Joe's insight, his carefulness, his attention to the whole process is so Zen-like. What that means to me is living life with an open mind, an open heart. Mary Oliver, one of my favorite poets, puts it this way, and this is taken from a poem called Sometimes. I will call it Mary's recommendation to a fulfilling life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. Here are a few excerpts from Joe with some comments. So here's Joe. Here's Joe right at the beginning of the process, wondering, how am I going to tackle this? Is this job really too much for me to do? And if so, I better not do it. But if I do it, so there's this really questioning, should I do this or not do it? It's kind of like going to Doksan sometimes. Should I go in or should I not? Anyway, Joe's comments. It is critical for the observer to maintain a position that affords a broad horizon, one that attempts to explain behavior in a light that is brighter than our own immediate experience. The experience of when we're in this discriminating mind is what he's referring to. Yeah, kind of avoid that if you're going into whatever, bringing in that discriminating mind, if you can kind of just be aware of it. He continues, it is an exercise in overcoming our intellectual presumptions. Doesn't that sound like what our teachers tell us? This exercise to drop our intellectual presumptions, which, if we do drop them, can lead to this realm of don't know, whereby we may find that gap, a moment of stopping, a moment of releasing our judgments. Sometimes that gap can come in between that breath of 1 and 2, and there we are, just that pure essence of not judging. This gap between thoughts that can bring us to wakefulness. Another quote, short quote from Joe Huto. As I continue working on the trench into the morning, I am obviously compelled to make the edges straight, cutting the profiles clean and vertical. I admire the dark humus with flecks of charcoal, down to the sterile yellow sand below. The dark stain of an ancient mole burrow winds down the bottom of the trench, that rich, musty smell of the newly opened earth and sharp perfume of fresh-cut pine roots. Lost in the trench, I lose sight of my objective. Just digging, digging, digging. My senses, Joe, reached a state of meditative consciousness, deeply absorbed, or I'll call it an luminous mind, perhaps even the beginning of a samadhi. Just these everyday things, it comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes. Okay, this leads me to the last comment about Joe and how it really led me to Kiyosei, me calling up Valerie. Valerie's one of my Zen Buddhist teachers, and asking her, I know there's a koan about picking and pecking, but I can't remember the name. And there's so many koans, folks. I mean, I don't know, 400, 500, whatever it is. There's our course is long, long and sometimes thought of as arduous. This description of the imprinting. So Joe has 24 eggs. He has them in an incubator, and he's very nervous, just like I am right now giving this talk, nervous about those eggs. He does not want to miss the time when the eggs are cracking and the little chicks are coming out. He wants to be there. So he sets his timer, and I don't know, what, a couple hours or something, comes running back into the room with the eggs. Nothing's happening, goes back. Anyway, he shows up. And this first egg, he can hear the sound. This picking, the picking by, we'll say the picking by the student. Louder and louder, and all of a sudden there's this hairline crack. Just a little hairline crack. And then more and more. And all of a sudden, it breaks open. And sometimes what Joe has to do, though, he has to peck from the outside to help the little chick comes out. So the chick comes out with its eyes wide open, stumbling all over, catches Joe, and there they are, eyeball to eyeball. And the chick comes on over, gets next to Joe, always staring, always eye contact, and then falls asleep. So how could I not get into this koan? Picking and pecking. All right. Kiyosei, Master Kiyosei. Case 16. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the koan, and it's not a long koan at all, 4 lines. I'm going to read the koan, and I'm going to go from line to line, and then I'm going to come back and read the whole thing again and give a demonstration with a few words. All right. Case 16. A monk asked Kiyosei, I, your student, am picking from the inside shell. I beg you, master, please peck from outside. Kiyosei said, but will you be alive or not? The monk said, if I were not alive, people would all laugh. Kiyosei said, you fool in the woods. The monk student is in Doksan interview with his master teacher. Sorry I put it that way, but let me just, so we all have a sense, we have a mixed group here. So master, the teacher, monk is the student, Doksan interview. Just a few words, Doksan interview. And as I was talking earlier, you're going to kind of remember some of the things I was saying. When I think of Doksan, I think of still to this day, after 4 decades of this stuff, I still get very excited going in, do bows, sit across from the teacher. Well, now it's virtual, okay? So I'm there. So now it's virtual. But we still do the bow. And we still are eyeball to eyeball contact. And there's this thing that happens. There's this invitation to open your heart. And everyone who has done Doksan, the more we can open up, the clearer it becomes. The more we shut down and don't open up. It's not a missed opportunity, but when you experience it, you go, oh, okay, next time. Anyway, all right. So, let me just repeat that. I, your student, am picking from inside the shell. I beg you, master, please peck from outside. The monk is in Doksan with his master. This is an advanced student who thinks he is ready to completely open up, to shatter the shell. Please, master, help me break out of this shell. Help me realize the way. Help me come to enlightenment. I am ready. I'll pick on the inside. You peck on the outside. So this picking and pecking refers to the questioning by the student and answering by the master in Doksan room. Where is this way? This no self, this essential nature that the student is searching for. This brings to mind, again, back to Hakuin Zenji's Song of Zazen. The first line says, from the very beginning, all beings are Buddha. The last line says, this very body, the body of Buddha. The middle portion is the journey. It's the journey to realization, to enlightenment. This monk is on the journey, working through all the preconceived ideas and concepts about Buddha, enlightenment, the way. Some more thoughts on this monk's picking. I beg you, master, please peck from the outside. This statement takes courage. It reminds me of so many of the koans in the Gateless Gate that so many of us have studied. And what does Mumon write again and again? Mumon writes, the monk asks in all earnestness. This humble presentation is similar to the bowing that we do. It is an act of opening the heart. I'll call it having the right attitude. Courage is another word that comes to mind. The second line. Kiyose, Master Kiyose said, but will you be alive or not? Kiyose here is checking the monk. He says, yes, he will peck on the outside. However, he is concerned that the monk may die if he is not ready for the shell to be broken open. Are you sure you're ready? You may not be ready. let me come back to the shell. What is the shell made out of? Is it thin wall or double wall? My sense is the shell is all the preconceived ideas we have about Buddhas, about enlightenment that I mentioned earlier. Again, referring to Hakuin Zenji's Sangha Zazen, he puts it this way: from dark path to dark path we wander. When shall we be freed from birth and death? This shell also is brought up in the gateless gate mentioned in the Mumonkan. These gates, this gateless gate, these gates that we set up. There is no gate, but we set up the gate. That's the shell. I'm thinking of a question that someone asked me, it was a couple of the Wednesdays in the past. And they said something like this: I just finished session retreat, and I'm finding it hard to get back to the swing of things. It is a matter of feeling more sensitive, and it hurts. And it was a matter also that she was becoming more aware of her monkey mind, jumping from one thought to the next thought. So in my my humble words to her, I said something, this hurt feeling that the person brought up is part of the shell. It is the shell. It is what happens to many students practicing, including myself. My sense is that one should embrace it, welcome it. Don't judge it. Don't judge it. It is the shell starting to be picked at. And possibly a little tiny crack. Be happy that you have noticed it. Don't identify with it. It will pass. It'll pass like a cloud in the air. Just like a cloud passing. Third line. The monk said, if I were not alive, people would all laugh. If I'm not ready, the monk is saying, if I'm not ready, people would all laugh. Who will be laughed at? The monk for not being ready? Or the master who does not know how to help or peck? By the way, this master Kiyose, he was noted for being able to help people in the Doksan. Fourth line and the final line. Kiyose said, you fool in the woods. You fool in the woods. It surely appears Master Kiyose is putting down our monk. The monk's statement that if he is not ready, people would all laugh, makes me think he still has delusive ideas. Ideas about gain, loss, right and wrong. And if he is truly ready, then the monk would be totally absorbed in his meditation, meaning there would be no thought of being enlightened or not being enlightened. However, Master Kiyose does call the monk a fool in the weeds. He is still in the weeds, but he is called a fool. A fool is someone who doesn't know much. Perhaps we can say a fool is single-minded. How wonderful. How wonderful in our practice when we become single-minded. This could be praise by slander, which comes up in so many of the koans. Now I got a note that I wrote in here. Yeah. I do appreciate this monk. I do appreciate the monks challenging Master Kiyose. He is a live wire. Yeah, I remember when I wrote that probably 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I don't know. Live wires. Yeah, another aspect of going into that Doksan room, being alive, being aware, meeting the master head on. Okay, now I like to close. I like to close with this question. And before I read that question, just let me reread this. A monk asked Kiyose, Master Kiyose, I, your student, am picking from inside the shell. I beg you, Master, please peck from the outside. Kiyose said, but will you be alive or not? The monk said, if I were not alive, people would all laugh. Kiyose said, you fool in the woods. So, what is the point of this koan? This, I have a copy of this koan that also has a verse, and this last line of the verse says, all monks under heaven grope around in vain. And basically what that's referring to, yeah, what is this koan about? What is all this picking and pecking about? Remember, all koans point to our essential nature, the world of complete freedom, completely independent. Realization has finally happened. You practice every day without practicing. The picking and pecking are no problem. They are done with complete freedom. So, how would you show this? The point of this koan? Pick, 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 pick. Or, hey Joe, I think we're almost done. Or, hello Nancy. Thank you for listening to this old plumber go on and on and on. I hope some of you had a good nap. I always hear, Henry has said that so many times, and yeah, I feel the same way. Sometimes it's probably better, or maybe it's always better to take a nap instead of listen to me. And thank you for this practice.